Hello and welcome to Edinburgh Business Stories. EBS is hosted by myself, Alex Richards of Umore, a video production studio based in Edinburgh and Bristol, and Alan Smith of Action Coach, providing business coaching throughout Edinburgh and the Lothians. If you aren't already, remember to subscribe, and I hope you enjoy this upcoming episode of Edinburgh Business Stories. Jill, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
So give our audience a snapshot who you are and what your business is.
My name is Gillian Ogilvie. I am Managing Director of Will Rudd in Edinburgh. We are a civil and structural design consultancy, which means we design buildings, roads, drainage, all the sort of infrastructure for sort of daily life. We have a sister company in Glasgow called Will Rudd Glasgow and an offshoot in Dublin, and I run and co-own the Edinburgh branch.
Amazing. Take us back. Where did this all begin?
Okay, so I have a master's in civil and structural engineering from Newcastle University. And once I did that, I thought, well, I've studied that for 4 years, might as well go and see what the job's like. So I went down to London to seek my fortune, and I joined a national contractor. And so I worked on building sites. I was essentially a sort of setting out engineer, checking engineer. My first site was an extension to a hospital in Acton in London, maternity hospital. Right next door to Wormwood Scrubs prison. So when I was walking to work up the side street, they would shout out the window of it wasn't that far. They would shout out the window at you. And you're like, you're not in Wormwood Scrubs for, thieving a loaf of bread. I'm not sure, you know what I mean? Anyway, so from there, when I finished building that, I went on to office block in the centre of London. And that one was about, 5 minutes walk from Smithfield Meat Market. Mm-hmm. And it had been started in the sort of 80s. And then when the sort of boom bust had happened, they had only got as far as the basement and they'd gone bust and they'd gone away. And so our job in this would be probably early 2000s was to complete the build. So it had been derelict for, 10 years or something, right next to the meat market. So the wildlife on that building site was, rats the size of cats and all that. So I built that and I worked 7:30 till 5:30, Monday to Friday, 7:30 till 1:30 on a Saturday. I had a commute because I couldn't afford to live in central London. So I had an hour on each side of that. And I actually was just like, this is just really hard. I have a lot of respect for people who work on site. And I would say as well, that was 25 years ago, so things have changed. But so a lot of my friends were in consultancy at the time. And I thought, this is hard, physically really demanding, on my feet all day. Mentally, maybe not so much. The maths was easier. It was a lot of coordination. It was a lot of dealing with people. And so I joined international consultancy, so a design firm, still based down in London. And that was so different. So I was in an office to start off with. I wasn't on site. People would speak to me at this level. They wouldn't shout, engineer, that's what they used to shout across the site, engineer, when they needed something. Uh-huh. It's like, wow, people are really polite, And so I worked there down in, it was in Croydon actually. And it was amazing work, really amazing work. And technically really challenging. So a total flip to being on site. Physically sat at a desk all day, went home, had loads of energy, but mentally was exhausted because it's doing a lot of calculations. So when I was there, I designed the Sage in Gateshead, which is a music centre on the banks of the Tyne. It's one of my favourite buildings still. It's absolutely beautiful. Has this gorgeous sort of waveform roof. I didn't do that, but it's beautiful. And even still, when you go, so this is the thing, if you go down on the train from Edinburgh to London or even Edinburgh to Newcastle, you go past it and then the Tyne Bridge and the curvy bridge that is the pedestrian bridge. I mean, it's fab. So did that.
I've actually sang there.
Have you?
Yeah, I have.
What did you sing?
Different life, my old life, with the National Youth Choir of Scotland.
Yeah.
There you go. Fun fact.
I mean, it's fab, isn't it?
It's beautiful. Yeah. No, it's
Cool. Give us a tune.
Amazing.
No, well, we'll save it for later.
Right, okay.
After hours.
We'll go to the pub after. Do some karaoke. Yeah. So it's still one of my most favourite buildings. And then I thought, do you know what? Actually, it's London. London's really tough. And I was really lonely. And I look back on that time and I think, do you know, London can be quite isolating, I think. And for a woman in construction, when, you know, I'm struggling to find people like me, I find it quite isolating. And so different times, I said to my boss, I need to be north of Newcastle. I don't care where I am, but I just need to be north of Newcastle. And he said, where would you like to go? They wouldn't say that now. And I said, I'd like to go back to Edinburgh. And so I got a job in their Edinburgh office and they promptly gave me a job designing the tunnels at Terminal 5 at Heathrow. So I worked for at least a year designing the tunnels. So if you fly into London Heathrow and you need to fly out of an A gate or a B gate, you have to get on a little train through a tunnel. So I designed those tunnels. Oh. And I am so proud of that. I am totally so proud of it. And the first time I flew afterwards, I flew out of Heathrow. I flew by myself to visit a friend in America. And I was on the train and I was like, these are my tunnels. These are my tunnels.
Did you just
Who can I tell? Who can I tell?
I was going to say, did you just want to tell people?
Some random that's just, you know, come off a 24-hour flight or something. I'm like, I feel these tunnels. I'm so excited about it. So excited about it. I'm still excited about it when we fly and my husband's like, I know, don't say it. I know, you know, heard it all before. So yeah, I did that, which was amazing. But I did a lot of work, which was huge. So this consultancy, Mott MacDonald it's called, they do international stuff. My colleagues were designing Wembley Stadium, or they designed Chek Lap Kok Airport in Hong Kong. I mean, huge infrastructure projects. Wow. And I wasn't meeting anyone. I was sat in front of my computer for 8 hours a day doing finite element analysis of concrete. And then I was getting the concrete drawings through and I was checking the reinforcement for 8 hours. And then I was, you know, sending off, you know, additions or differences or whatever needed to be done. And I wasn't meeting anyone. I wasn't seeing the architect. I mean, I'm not convinced the tunnel has an architect, but, you know, wasn't seeing the architect, wasn't seeing the M&E engineer, certainly wasn't meeting the client. And so I got introduced to Stuart Davidson, who was managing director of Will Rudd in Edinburgh at the time. And I, you know, got a job there. So I started there in 2005 as a project engineer and basically worked my way up through senior engineer, associate director. And then in 2020 became managing director of Will Rudd in Edinburgh. And here I am.
Yeah. How did you meet Stuart?
I was actually introduced to him by a colleague, which is slightly weird. But I think the guy that I worked with could see that this wasn't happening for me. You know, the work that they were giving me just wasn't really, I mean, it was good. They were great projects. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm still so proud of that work, but you know, it clearly wasn't like my fire. So he knew him through the Institution of Structural Engineers Committee. And so he introduced me through that and I went for an interview and Stuart Davidson was a force of nature. He was something else. And looking back, I can see that from that day, he saw something in me that I clearly didn't see in myself.
Do you see it now?
Yeah, I hope that I have become what he knew that I could become. He absolutely pushed me forward. He very much could see what my skills were, more than just the technical side. And he was able to try and get me to embrace that in a way that I didn't really know how to do.
And it's interesting because you talked earlier on about the technical stuff, the math stuff as well, but there's the other side as well, which is the kind of the people side, I guess. You know, what are some of the traits that you think that Stuart maybe saw in you that?
So Stuart was, we used to joke, I don't think he would be upset. He used to go to the opening of an envelope. You know, Stuart was at everything. And he would work the room. Yeah. And if you went to a seminar or a conference or some sort of technical forum, he would say, you must ask a question and you must stand up and say, my name is Gillian Ogilvie from Will Rudd. This is my question. So your name was out there. Your name and the company name was out there before you asked the question. And so he was very much, his philosophy was, everybody can do WL squared over 8. So that is an equation. Exactly. You can see the engineers in the room and the non-engineers in the room. So that is an equation for a bending moment, which is how you design a beam, right? So it's like one of the first equations you learn. And his view was any engineer can do WL squared over 8. That is given. If you're employed to do a job, it's kind of given that you're going to do it technically properly. So what are you bringing to this? And what you're bringing is your personality, your attitude, your culture, the culture of the practice that you're in. And so people want to work with people. They don't really care if you can do WL squared over 8 in 2 minutes or 12 minutes. It's the personality that you bring to it. And so his big thing was get out, meet people, speak to them, make the connection. And so when they're having a dramarama, they will pick up the phone to you and say, I'm having a dramarama, can you help me out? And that's how we get our work.
This episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Southside Property Management. Are you managing property in Edinburgh? Then you'll want a team that treats your investment like it's their own. At Southside, they don't just manage, they maximize. From expert lettings and full management to project management that transforms layouts, they help landlords increase rental income and boost long-term return on investment. With transparent fees, responsive service, and a reputation built on trust, Southside are the go-to team for landlords across Edinburgh. Southside Property Management. Property made simple and profitable. Find out more at southsidemanagement.com. Now, back to the episode. And how have you found then the networking space?
I think I was very late. Well, not very late. I was later to the game than I should have been. So Stuart, very early on in my career at Will Rudd, I'd probably been there, 2 or 3 months. And he came up to my desk and he said, right, we've had a call off a Friday night. You want to come to this dinner with us? And I was like what this boss of mine is asking me to go to dinner? Like, that's just weird. And I was like, what sort of dinner? And he's like, well, we've taken a table at dinner and 5 of us, 5 clients. One of the clients is called off, so we need a replacement. It's in 2 days' time. Can you make it? And I was like, I don't know, but can I think about it? And he was like, think about it? What's there to think about? Are you free or are you not? And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, fine, you need to think about it. Say it's Wednesday. Tell me tomorrow morning because I need to find a replacement and I need to ring around. So you've got till 9 o'clock tomorrow. Right, fine. So I went home and I was chatting to my parents that night, chatting to my dad, and I was like, something weird happened at work today. My boss came up and said, do you want to go for dinner? And I don't know, should I go for dinner? And he was like, oh my God, lassie. He used to call me lassie. Oh my God, lassie. Go to the shops, buy a nice dress, get the dress on, go to the dinner, make the chat. That's where business is done. And I was like, really? But I just do calculations and I'm, And he was like, oh, don't be so naive. That's where business is done. That's where the chat's done. That's where the connections are made. This is a great opportunity you've been given, take it with both hands. And so that was really my introduction to how important networking was. And the other thing I think is really important about that is I was lucky enough to have a dad who was professional. He was an accountant, as it happens. Frustrated engineer, I think, but he was an accountant. But he knew how business worked. So when I said that to him, he could come back to me and say, go and do it. That's a really good opportunity. I've had a really good education. I'm white, I'm middle class. And I think it's important to recognize that privilege. And I'm quite conscious that privilege can be a kind of divisive word. So if you want to call it advantage, that's fine too. But that is an advantage that I have over people who aren't educated, whose family don't take an interest in them, who don't have people in the business. And so that was the start of my networking, but I did not embrace it. I hated it. It was painful. I couldn't find common ground. It's really difficult to make chit chat with people if you're not got any common ground with them. And so I probably didn't attack it as hard as I should have. But what I say to everybody now, if I'm ever asked, is network early and network often, because the people that you meet will come up through the company with you. And so when you're at managing director level, they'll be at managing director level, and you'll have a sort of whole lot of connections.
And how then have you found, have you got an example of, someone you met 15 years ago at networking that you've now built a tribe with almost,
my tribe. I love my tribe. Yeah, that's such an important thing. I think I joined an organization. Well, this is funny. When Stuart interviewed me for the job, he said, so if you're lucky enough to get this job, we'd like you to join an organization called Women in Property. And I really wanted this job. So I said, I absolutely would love to do that. Absolutely, we'd love to do that. And I came out of the interview and I was like, oh my God, I spend my whole life trying not to be a woman in the industry. Why on earth would I join an organization that makes me stand out as a woman in the industry? So, roll on 6 months, I'm at my first staff assessment, and he goes, so, you haven't joined Women in Property. I thought, we were going to get you to join Women. Yeah, I've been really busy just, fitting in and getting a new job and everything, but I'm on it. You're right, whatever. And it just kept on and on and on about this joining Women in Property. And I was like, for the love, okay, fine, I will join this thing. So I joined Women in Property, and obviously paper exercise, joined it, never got involved. And then eventually a girl who worked for a quantities fairs, a buildings fair, she called me, and I knew her sort of on the fringes, and she said, well, there's a Women in Property event coming up. Would you like to come along with me? And I said, yeah, that would be great. And I subsequently found out that Stuart rang her and said, I've got this new girl started with me. Oh my God, I do not know what is wrong with her. I've been pushing her to Women in Property, and I think you just need to take her under your wing. You just need to take her under your wing and show her the ropes, and she'll be fine. And she is one of my best friends now, and she has been a constant support. And so through Women in Property, I connected with more like-minded people, and I was able to be more of my authentic self, because I was surrounded by people that looked like me, who were facing the same challenges as me, who were having the same sort of thoughts as me. And it's not to say you were surrounded by yes people, but you just had a bit more comfort that you weren't a complete weirdo, and you weren't, thinking something that nobody else was thinking. And so if I look at that community that I built, they have introduced me to, loads of other people. And so when I took over as MD in 2020, like peak pandemic, like what a ridiculous time to take over and buy a business. And I was doing this thing probably about sort of July, August time with a girl called Jill Henry, who at the time was a director in a house builder. And we used to do this thing on a Friday afternoon called a wine on the line. Different times. It was COVID. We thought it was cool. And it was wine, as in W-I-N-E. We've got to Friday afternoon. Let's have a glass of wine on Zoom together. But also wine, W-H-I-N-E, like, oh my God, you will never guess the omni shambles that is rolled out this week. And so we were doing these calls, and she said, I think you need to meet Nicola. So Nicola Barclay was, at the time, Chief Executive of Homes for Scotland. And I was like, oh, right. And I knew her on the periphery, but I was like, she's kind of like what I want to be when I grow up. She's like what you're aiming for. And I said, yeah, sure, let's meet Nicola. And straight away, we just clicked. And I was saying, oh my God, we're in this pandemic. how are we going to get work? How are we going to get our next job? Because we get our next job by meeting people, by going for coffee, by taking them for lunch, by talking about what's on in the market, what's busy for you, what's a good, like chat. That's how we get our work. Yeah. We couldn't even leave the house, let alone meet anybody else. And I'm thinking, I've just taken over this very healthy business. Thank you very much. My number one at the time was do not break this business, because that's the sort of ambition I had. Let's get through the pandemic. And so I said to the girls, we just don't have an online presence. It's not good enough. That's the only way we're making our name known now is online. We do have a LinkedIn. It's run by engineers. That's not our core skill. We do have a Facebook, Instagram, but, it's rubbish. And Nicola just went, you need to meet Julie. So Julie Millsdale, Perceptive Communicators, you need to meet Julie. So she introduced me to her. She's now been a partner for us for 5 years. She really helps us with our PR. It's made a massive step change in our business. But that is the power of the tribe. That is the power of having people around you who will support you, who will introduce you. It made no benefit to Nicola to do that. Absolutely no benefit to her. But she knew it'd be a benefit to me. Yeah. She knew it'd be a benefit to Julie. So that's how we started. And I think what was important about that was, I had my tribe. I'd found my tribe of people who could support me, make me feel like I wasn't a complete weirdo, that my ideas were valid and all that. But I also asked for help. And that's so important, I think, to be able to say, help, I don't know how to do this. Can you help me? And because people will help you. They're desperate to help you, but they can't read your mind. So I think that was really an important learning.
And so in the same way as the likes of your dad and Stuart had kind of encouraged you along as well, how and you mentioned that engineers' core skill is obviously in the maths and all the technical side of things. How do you encourage the people side of it and the networking and those conversations with your team now?
It's so important. And I think, the pandemic has clearly changed how we operate totally. And so much of the things that we took for granted as being normal, going to meetings, going to meet people and what have you, a lot of that has disappeared. A lot of meetings are on Teams now, and it's really difficult to build a connection, I find, on Teams. And so what I say to my younger people is I'm explicit, and I say, this is where business is done. Okay. So business is not done by you it is. It's by you churning out a drawing and doing a good job and getting repeat business. That's how we get business, repeat business. But you also have to make the connection with the people. So we talk in Edinburgh and Will Rudd. We do a State of the Nation, for example, every month. And we say to people, we need you to like our posts on LinkedIn. So if you see something that I've put on LinkedIn and it chimes with you, like it, repost it, get it out there. If you see something on the Will Rudd page that chimes with you, get it out there, because that's how we get business. And so I think the difference is that we are now much more explicit in our organization. So we say to the project engineers, as I was at that time, when you go to a project meeting, get there 15 minutes early, because someone else will be early. And you can have a coffee and you can say, what's news with you? What's going on? How's the family? Where do you live? God, isn't it warm today? Because you don't need to launch into 15 minutes before a meeting. So have you got a job for me? Because I'd really like a job from you. It's like, it takes years to build up that connection. So you need to start as a project engineer so that when you are looking for work at associate or director level, it's ready for you.
It's interesting, this idea of, if you go back to your earlier story about your dad talking about, get on with it, lassie, get to that event. That's where business is done. And now you're being that explicit person as well with your team. I like that. There was one thing that I wanted to kind of touch on. And you've obviously got Stuart who sees the potential in you. You've got your dad who gives you that nice push. You've also had a boss, and we talked about this off camera, but the boss maybe in the London Underground who maybe was a bit protective of you. Tell us that story, please. I think that's quite an interesting angle.
So this was when I was working for the international consultancy in London, and we got a job to survey London Underground stations, and they were out in the suburbs, so in Dagenham, and so they're above ground stations. And at the time, London Underground had a shutdown period, say between 11 or midnight until 3-4 in the morning, where there were no trains running, where you could get on the track, you could look at the station structure, you could assess the condition of it. And so we were setting up the teams on who's going to do that. And this lovely man, he must have been probably in his 60s then or late 50s. He came over to me and he said, I've discussed with the director and we've decided that, you don't need to do this job. It's overnight work. It's really dark. It's going to be dirty and, it's going to be rats and, a bit dangerous. So it's cool. You can stay in the office and, we'll get you working on something else. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. No. I'm going to go and do this because I need to prove to me, to myself, to you, to the company, to the world, that I've got what it takes to do this. And, if I do that, then the next time the job is, we would like someone to go and assess this station in the Bahamas, then I can put my hand up and say, I'd like to go and do that because I've done it in the London Underground with the rats in the dark, and I totally could do it in the Bahamas. And so it really sort of, when I look back on that, I think I knew that I wanted to prove myself, mm-hmm. to give me the confidence to know that I was where I should be. Mm-hmm. And, I think a lot of the time it's not malicious. They're not trying to keep me in my place. Mm-hmm. They just were being nice. And they said, it's not a very nice job and you don't have to do it. But I think you have to stand up and say, I'm not going to take that. I'm going to do what I think is right for me.
Mm-hmm. Your journey with Will Rudd, as you kind of progressed through the different roles, did you ever imagine being at the place where you would eventually be in ownership of the Edinburgh space? What how was your mindset through that? Was that always the goal, or what?
Oh God, absolutely not. No. I had very little ambition to do that. My focus was getting chartered, first of all. So I'm a member of the Institution of Civil Engineers, Institution of Structural Engineers. The exam to get into the Institution of Structural Engineers is an absolute brick. It is so difficult to pass. That was my focus when I joined Will Rudd, was getting through that. I failed it first time. I went home and drank a bottle of wine. It was so stressful. And then I knew what I was getting into, so I got it the second time around. But that was my focus. And then once I had that, my focus was, delivering good projects. And, I look back on that and I never really pushed for anything. And so I was lucky that I had somebody who was pushing for me. They were promoting me. They were giving me opportunity, because I certainly was just doing a good job, and, I don't want to be falsely humble. I was doing a good job. I was getting through the work and clients were, responding to me, and I was getting a lot of good feedback, and it was all that. But I think when I became director, I was like, okay, this is sort of interesting. This is serious. This is kind of getting more and more responsibility. And so Stuart had retired by this point. Gus Roxburgh was my managing director. And, again, he was really supportive and he really pushed me forward. And he said, I think you can do it. I'm looking to retire. I think you've got the skills. I think you've got what it takes. So, do you want it, kind of thing? And I looked at the other directors who, could have been in the space, and I thought, yeah, I think I have what it takes. But I mean, Will Rudd in Edinburgh, we have a really long service staff. So when I joined in 2005, my boss then I'm now his boss. So I've kind of overtook him in the ranks. And, credit to him for being cool with that, because not everybody would be cool with that. And we've had, a lot of conversations about them, some of them, better than others. But at the end of the day, he's one of the, best guys that we have. And so the directors in our practice are very supportive of me, and I'm very grateful for that. And I think that part of the sort of skill, or part of the difference that I bring, is that I'm very interested in people. I'm very interested in the culture of our organization. I've introduced the staff to Brené Brown's Dare to Lead, which is an American researcher. I think she's like a social work researcher or something. And she's written this book called Dare to Lead, about how to lead better with vulnerability, with authenticity. I have in my bag, because it's in my little notebook, I have a feelings wheel, Alan. And I bring out my feelings wheel at all conversations whenever it's needed. It sits in my notebook. And a feelings wheel. So if you ask somebody, right, name me what feelings you have, the majority of people get happy. I'm happy. I'm sad. I'm angry. I'm happy. I'm joyful. I'm sad. I'm angry. and it's the struggle to get past 4 feelings. So this feelings wheel has on it, 50 feelings. And it's in a circle, and it's like a wedge. So in the circle, in the middle, there's happy, sad, angry, disappointed. And then that radiates out, and it gives you 2 more words that are similar to, and then it gives you 10 more words that are similar to that. So it allows you to go around the wheel and go, oh, that is what I'm feeling. And then you draw the line back to the core feeling, and you can kind of process, oh, I'm actually really angry. Didn't expect that. And so, it's been 20 years since I've worked in any other consultancy, but I'm going to say there are very few engineering consultancies out there who are bringing out feeling wheels at meetings. But I find that is kind of been my thing, which has brought something different to Will Rudd, because I didn't need to save Will Rudd in Edinburgh. It was a very healthy firm when I got it. It was a great, solid business with a really good reputation. And like I say, in the first days, my aim was not to break it in the pandemic. But once we got past those hideous first sort of couple of years, it was like, so what am I going to bring to this? And that's kind of been what I've been able to sort of bring in or develop.
So how are you feeling?
Get the wheel out.
I'm joking.
Can I just get my feelings wheel?
What's your take on imposter syndrome, please?
Oh, we've talked about this before, and how long have we got? I've got a soapbox about imposter syndrome. I have a slightly nuanced view. So imposter syndrome is something that women predominantly are told they need to get over. Go on a course. There's loads of courses out there for women to get over imposter syndrome. And I have a slightly nuanced view in that. And in our office in Edinburgh, we call it a twist of the kaleidoscope. So you're looking down a kaleidoscope, you just twist it slightly, you're seeing the same shapes, but you're just seeing it in slightly different colours. My big thing is we need to bring down the patriarchy. And I say that to people, and that's what I get, a sort of nervous Twitter, sort of nervous, she's gone crazy. But I'm solid on this. We need to bring down the patriarchy, because the patriarchy is not serving women, and it is not serving men either. And I read this absolutely fantastic book recently called Building Women. It's by Faye Allen. If you take nothing out of this podcast, take that, read the book, Building Women by Faye Allen. She's a chartered surveyor. And she wrote this book about, how to make the construction industry more diverse. And that's the point. We need a more diverse construction industry. Let's park the women bit for just now. the statistic that absolutely floored me in that book, every working day, we lose 2 men to suicide in the construction industry. Say that again. Every working day, we lose 2 men to suicide in the construction industry. So, newsflash, the patriarchy isn't working for men either, because the patriarchal stereotypes that are required of men are be brave, don't cry, don't let your feelings show, be strong, be the provider, be the one that everybody can rely on. Well, that's clearly not working for 2 men every single working day. So my whole thing is, how about we just take a step back and we challenge the patriarchal norms, and we say, how about we just bring that right back to, let's be more diverse. Let's welcome a different view. Be that my experience as women. So as a woman in the construction industry, let's get more women in the construction industry. For sure, let's run some courses on how to overcome imposter syndrome, because, that is part of the female patriarchal norm is you will be quiet, you will be a good girl, you will fade into the background, you will not make a fuss, all that sort of stuff. But I feel like we're concentrating on the wrong thing. We need to be up here at the management level, at the CEO level. So when I say read Building Women by Faye Allen, I'm not saying women go and read it. I'm saying all you people up here in the C-suite, you read it, because you need to understand things like your privilege or your advantage. And you need to understand that I am an imposter. Because my ideas, like I was saying earlier, when I meet my tribe and they go, oh yeah, you're not crazy. Because actually every other room that I was walking into, my ideas were different. I wasn't walking into networking spaces and people were saying to me, so I've heard of this thing called a feeling wheel, and I'm thinking I should bring it out in a meeting. No one's saying that. So the ideas that I'm bringing are different. And so I am an imposter. So it's not a syndrome that, and I would signpost you to an article in the Harvard Business Review called Stop Telling Women That They Suffer from Imposter Syndrome, and a YouTube clip from Reshma Sajani, her name is. She started Women Who Code, and she did they do those big American university graduation addresses. She did one for Smith's University, which is an all-female university, about something called bicycle face, which was a medical condition properly documented in the 1890s. And the medical paper says women who ride bikes will suffer a medical condition called bicycle face. And the symptoms of bicycle face are flushed cheeks, bulging eyes, gritty facial expression. And basically they were saying, and the wind will change and you will stay like this forever. I mean, we can look back on that now and go like crazy. But at the time, that was published in a medical journal in America. And the concept actually is women were getting out by themselves, going to suffragette meetings, gaining their power, taking off their long dresses and putting on bloomers so that they could cycle better. And the patriarchal society were going, whoa, hang on a minute. This is not what we bought into. And so if you look at I'm paraphrasing clearly here, but if you look at the similarities between bicycle face and imposter syndrome, to be clear, it is not a medical condition. It is a feeling. And actually, this is another thing that's in Faye Allen's book. She dug into the research originally around imposter syndrome that was done in the 70s. It was done in a study group of, I'm going to say something like 150 white women in universities with a sort of PhD education, right? And we, society, we have somehow morphed that into every woman and only women will suffer from imposter syndrome. And you're like, sorry, just to be clear, it was 150 American white well-educated women that were surveyed. And we've managed to morph this in a society way to every and only women will suffer this. And you're like, no, that's not what they were meaning. I don't think that's what they were meaning. I don't think that's what we are interpolating from this. So I kind of am trying to just be a bit nuanced on what we're saying here on the imposter syndrome and the patriarchy, and just trying to say we're looking for diversity in all its many forms, because that will make us more welcoming and it will make us better at business. I think there's a bottom line. There's a bottom line there. It will make us more money, I think, is the ultimate. I really believe that.
How do you then take that and use that as part of your culture then?
Yeah. We've done a lot of work on this in Edinburgh, and there is no silver bullet. Okay. So we all, and I'm totally including myself in this, we all need to try harder. We all need to look at things differently. And so things for me, like, the very obvious, you can't, there's a saying, you can't become what you can't see. Not sure I totally believe that. I've never worked for a woman. Newsflash, I'm a managing director. But, I am visible. I am doing things like this, Alan, to be more visible. I'm trying to say, look, it's possible. I'm the managing director of a civil and structural engineering consultancy. It's totally doable. So it's a lot of visual. We have started running in Edinburgh these cultural change sessions. We did a employee questionnaire, an anonymous employee questionnaire. It was run by our business. We have a business consultant, and she said, you're not me, managing director. You're not even going to see the results. I'm going to totally anonymize them and just give you the headlines that come out of this. So she was very clear that this had to be totally anonymous to be able to get the truth out of our staff. And so out of this questionnaire, there were 15 findings, and we set up a cultural change group to address these findings. Number one, we need to have more open conversations. So the thing about Will Rudd is we're all pals. We're all pals. We've worked together. The directorial team, the new boy has, I don't know, I'm going to say like 12 years experience at Will Rudd, and he's the new boy. So I have 20 years, Chris 25 years, Stuart 25 years, Alan 18 years, Evan I think is on about 12 years or something. So we're all pals. We've grown up together, I know, and those are children. So our problem is we can't be mean to each other. Like we just like each other, and we find it really difficult to give critical feedback, and it's so important. And newsflash, the staff pick up on it. That's their thing is, well, they just don't give critical feedback. We can't improve. We don't get critical feedback. So we've worked really hard to have constructive critical feedback. And we have now these sort of, they're like pop art signs around the office that say clear is kind, unclear is unkind. It's a Brené Brown. It's a Brené Brown. So let's be clear here what I expect of you and why I expect you to do it like that. And I'm being clear because that is being kind. So you know exactly what is expected of you and you can fulfill it, and you know what happens if you don't. And it's not like, and if you don't do it, I'm going to fire you. It's like, this is why we need it. This is why we need it by this time. Or trying to change that culture. The second one was staff progression. So staff wanted to be clearer on what their next role is. So we now have every staff member has every 3 months a review of what they need to hit to get a promotion to the next grade. And once they've hit that promotion, once they've hit all those things, they get that promotion. So they can be very clear is kind what we think they need to work on. And we will be clear is kind that you will get the promotion once you have ticked all those boxes. The third one was about our data. How do we gather our data to make sure that we are targeting the right markets, to make sure that we are bringing in the right sort of work that people want to do, that is interesting, that is, going to keep them engaged. And so we've done some work around getting a new system to allow us to do that, which, has really sort of helped us to be more focused on what our core business is. And so we took a year to do that. And then, we have another 11. So we're working through them now, and I think the key, I'm all about these catchy sayings, but it was something the management consultant said to us after this staff engagement survey we did. We have all the strategies in the world for lots of great stuff. But if we don't have the right culture, that's what embeds the strategy. So culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I was like, she said that to me for years. And I'm like, yeah, totally culture eats strategy for breakfast. I know it's a nightmare, isn't it? And then it was really after the staff engagement survey that I went, oh, I get it. We need to embed this in our culture. So we had staff engagement, but it wasn't embedded in our culture in the way that it is now. So I have absolutely no idea what question you asked me, but I've gone off on a right tangent.
It was around imposter syndrome.
Culture.
But what's interesting, just pulling that back, in terms of you said that you took over a business that was a well-run business and you just didn't want to break it. But your question was around, what do I add?
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like what you're adding there is all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
Which is the people side of things. It is.
And it's the diversity. I am different. I am something, some may call me an imposter in this industry sometimes. But, to be absolutely clear, I've had a fantastic time. I would recommend construction to anybody, male, female, whatever. It's a brilliant job. And we've talked a little bit before about how excited like at the beginning, how excited I still get about projects that I work on. And I love wandering around Edinburgh. When I walked down from the bus today, I was like, that's one of mine, that's one of mine, that's one of mine, that's one of mine. My husband's like, oh my God, I've had it. Yes, I know that's one of yours. Oh, shall we go to our latest and greatest project is the Edinburgh Futures Institute. Used to be the Royal Infirmary up on the Meadows. It's now Edinburgh University's Edinburgh Futures Institute. It's amazing. Yeah. It looks amazing.
Yeah, it is.
It's a fantastic facility for the university. Its crest over the door is, not even going to try the Latin, open to all. So that was the original concept of the hospital. It was open to all. And Edinburgh University have really taken this on board, and it is open to all. So you can just wander in and wander around. It's got a really nice cafe. And I go in there because I'm like, this is one of mine. This is really cool. And it's probably the last project that I really had fingertips on.
Yeah.
We have this thing called structural engineers registration certification. Yeah. And I have to certify for building control that this building complies. And it's a really responsible job, and we take it incredibly seriously. And that was the last sort of project that I have certified, because now you're not really in the technical anymore. Yeah. And so it's the last one that I can really claim some sort of connection, because now, we're doing the King's Theatre refurb at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
Another absolutely fab project. That's going to be amazing when it's done. The big thing about theatres is, so I did the Usher Hall as well, the glass curved extension. I've heard it being called a shower curtain. Whatever, it's beautiful. The thing about that was, right, when the Usher Hall was built, you had the posh people and you had the poor people, and never the two shall meet. So if you were the posh people, you went in the front door up this beautiful marble staircase with marble on the walls. It's absolutely stunning. If you were the poor people, you went up the service stair to the top, and you didn't get to go up the marble stair. So obviously nowadays, that's totally not how we operate. And so the Usher Hall, it was, at the time, it was absolutely crazy structurally. Brilliant idea, but crazy structurally. we took out the staircase. So we left the facade and everything. We just took out the service stair and we put in this new beautiful stair that if you go to the usher hall, looks like a nuclear reactor with this big light down the middle. It's beautiful spiral stair that accesses all levels. So it's like universal access. People with disabilities can get in, obviously not the stair, but we put in lifts and we just, universal access was the thing. They're just doing it at the King's Theatre. So we're doing exactly the same. We're taking out the old poor people stair and we're putting in new stairs and new lifts, and it's amazing. But I am clutching onto the coattails of that job because I have nothing technical to do with it. So when the contractor comes and says, oh, you know, we're doing this ceremony to sign the steel. So to sign on the new steel that we have put on the fly tower at the back. Would you like to come? Yes, please.
Just a bit.
You know, and I'm like, can we invite, you know, the actual people that worked on it as well? Because, you know, I'm only coming for name alone, but I'm not giving this opportunity up. And so, yeah, we went up and the whole team, Robertson's, you know, got the whole team there and we signed the steel. And
wow.
I mean, it's fab. And you don't get that. So like in other industries, you're not getting that. So I totally would recommend the construction industry to anyone.
So from the opening of envelopes to the opening of really cool buildings.
Yeah, that's exactly it in a nutshell. Well done.
Nicely done. Nicely done.
Jill, we ask all our guests, what is your guiding principle in business?
Yes. I would say be your own authentic self. It's all that you can do. And Brené Brown has this thing. Don't puff up, don't go small, just stand on your own sacred ground. So don't come into a room going, oh, I know everything. Everything's, you know, do it this way, do it that way. Don't go small. Don't go and go, I'm really sorry. I don't know if you know this, but maybe you just stand on your own sacred ground. And I can tell you from my experience, that is a lot easier if you have a tribe around you to give you that comfort that you are somewhere sensible.
Jill, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story, and we wish you all the luck in the future.
Thank you.